Welcome to the After Dark podcast with Anthony James and Conrad. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode.
Hello, and welcome to the After Dark podcast. I'm Anthony James, and that's Conrad.
Hello.
Nailed it. Right, Conrad, how are you this week?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm a bit sore because gyms have reopened in the country on Wednesday. Yeah, I think they opened on Wednesday, so I was in for the first time in about a month and a half, and I'm a bit sore.
Oh, jeez. Right, what were you doing? Leg day? Started off with leg day?
No, it was bench and squats. I have a weird routine, but yeah, bench and squats and some other stuff. So I've got to sore everything, as it turns out.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have sore everything tomorrow because I did DDP yoga.
Yeah, you mentioned that the other day. It's good. It's cool that you're doing that.
Yeah, like I bought the discs ages ago and I've been using them sporadically, and now Ema was like, you know what? You need to do it because we spent 80 quid on it. And if you don't do it at least 80 times, it's worthless. You know, we didn't make the money back. That's our thing. If we use it once for every pound, then we've got the use out of it.
Yeah.
I've worn this jumper over 200 times now. 4 quid.
Oh,
Come on.
You're effectively making money off of it at that point.
I'm making money off this at the minute. But so doing the yoga, and Ema's trying to do it too, but she can only do the short ones because there's a particular little boy needs fed. So is what it is, you know.
Young children have no respect for yoga.
Yeah, actually, I need to check. You just reminded me about the gym because I need to check that. I was paying a gym membership and going to the gym before lockdown in March. I think they suspended the payments for a while because of, no one could go.
Yeah.
But I need to check if that money's coming out now because I don't know if they restarted the payments.
They probably have.
Yeah, they probably have, actually. Jeez, I need to get on that.
Nice.
I haven't used it in like 4 months, probably enough for paying. All right, I think I'm just a lazy layabout, which I am, but I just don't want to even be on the books for it. Anyway, right, guys, before we start, I've got a few thank yous to put out here. There's been a few donations coming our way, and we're very, very appreciative. If anyone wants to donate to help the podcast, we will get, we're always upgrading our stuff. We're on the slow climb to a really, really professional sounding podcast. I think we're sort of a fair bit up the mountain so far, but it's always a slow climb. So we've got 3 more donations. You can find the link in the tip jar, for the tip jar in the description. The first donation comes through from A. Kerim Kulova. Now, I tried to go slow there because I don't know about the pronunciation, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just leaving a little gap there for you.
Yeah, I'm not going to say thank you. I'm not grateful. No, I am. That's really kind of you.
You're not getting any of the money.
Actually, just like what you said there, I was watching one of our episodes the other day, and it auto played onto one of our earlier ones, and it is like not to blow our own horn, but it is like night and day where we're at now with where we were then, and it is thanks to people shooting a couple of coppers our way to help us out.
Yeah, guys, at the end of the day, you know us. I have a love for Dark. I started the channel because of it. I dragged Conrad in, and this is where we are. So, any advice you can give us on how to make our show better. I mean, you might have noticed the little gaffe last week. I left something in accidentally. It was pretty funny anyway. It's not there anymore. So if you went and recorded the screen to get me making a mistake, if you didn't do that, it's not there anymore.
It's lost into the ether.
Yeah, so we are making mistakes every now and then, but at the same time, I think we're learning a lot, and it's thanks to your advice in the comments. Next donation comes in from our good friend, Vic Disco. Thanks very much, Vic.
Thank you very much, Vic.
And last one comes from Rennie. I think Rennie goes by Archmaester Rennie in the comments. So thanks very much, Rennie, again. Excellent. All right, guys. Apart from that, I think we'll just say subscribe to the podcast. Like the video if you haven't already.
I'm pointing down at the...
Oh, I thought you were doing the thumbs down.
Oh no, this is me pointing at the bell icon that I want them to smash.
Yeah, smash that bell icon. Make sure you turn on all notifications. And subscribe on podcasting apps as well. Thanks very much. If you want to email us, if you listen on podcasting apps and you want to ask Conrad a question, just email us at adpodmail@gmail.com. adpodmail@gmail.com. Comments for Conrad for next episode underneath. All right, Conrad, ready to get into it?
Yep, let's do it.
Oh, let's break it down!
So the episode opens with a dream that we see lots of these dreams where people then frighteningly wake up. This time it's Marta's turn, and as we talked about last time, it's seems as if she's sort of a Jonas of this world, so it sort of makes sense that she would be waking up sort of from a nightmare in the same way. The nightmare itself was a young Jonas and her getting it on, so to speak. Yeah, so you want to talk about this nightmare at all, first of all?
Well, I mean, it's in... the location is different because it's not in the bed in her real world household. It's in the Carnlold bed. And given the dream that they...
Well, that is a real household, isn't it?
What, in this reality?
In this world, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean that the fact that every sex dream we've seen between them previously
has been the same sex,
has been the same sex scene that happened in the Nielsen house at the night of the party. Yeah. Makes me think that this might have also happened as well.
Which is interesting, actually, because you sort of were on the fence, even tipping towards it wasn't going to happen. You thought it happened in the past when we first saw it.
Yes, yeah.
Last time, I mean, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess it kind of did happen in the past, as far as Alt Marta is concerned, but not as far as Jonas is concerned. So
true.
But yeah, so that seems like the implication there. Other than that, this intro sequence it gives you little flashes of Marta enduring what looks to be a kind of similar event to what Jonas went through, with someone getting shot. Don't really see who, but as we'll go through in this episode, I think it looks like it might be Magnus, given what's mentioned in this episode. And obviously we see the St. Christopher pendant come back again. More on that later.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and then she wakes up being watched by Stranger. And I think there's interesting turns. I'm not sure if I'm fully on board with them yet, to be honest, with the Stranger, because it seems to have come out of nowhere a little bit. Although we don't know the contents of the letter that he's read.
What came out of nowhere?
So he's a lot more. He's a lot more like he's a lot more like suspicious, and he's quite frequently angry, and he's quite imposing in a way that he wasn't before he went back in time. Like, you can see the character turning into Adam now.
So could I give maybe a thought as to why I think at this point in the show that might be?
Yep, go on.
Because I think that he's in denial that he's going to be Adam.
Yeah.
And I think when he got there to 1888, a little thing in his head went, "Oh no, this is what happens to Adam."
It's all panning
too.
out.
And as the months are going on,
yeah, and
he's now working on this machine, he's realizing more and more that this is who he's going to be.
Yeah.
And I think that the denial that he's in is actually maybe what's going to force him to get there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's where I'm getting caught up at the moment, because I'm kind of expecting there to be one big moment where it's like, okay, my character is turning now, and it seems in a way that'd actually be probably quite unrealistic. And I think it's what we're actually seeing is a slow kind of just breakdown of all of his good qualities as he gets more frustrated with his failures to create the time machine, and like you say, his realization that he is becoming Adam. But it's it's interesting to see, and obviously, you know, the way Marta wakes up with him sitting watching her is quite reminiscent of when Jonas woke up with Noah watching him. And actually, Adam, it might have happened again with Adam. I can't remember.
It did happen with Adam, yeah.
Yeah, so...
Adam, he woke up with Adam, and then his yellow jacket and all was sitting there for him to get dressed.
Yeah, that's right. So it's happened, with both Noah and with young Noah and with Adam. So I think it's a pretty obvious visual link between the characters there. But yeah, no, it's a strong opening scene, this. I was very sad to see that Magnus has had a haircut. That's heartbreaking to me.
Well, you know, hopefully you'll get to see a bit more of Alt Magnus, and you'll see his lovely locks.
Well, not for much longer, if this episode is anything to go by.
Yeah.
And Bartos looks like he's playing dress up in this. I can't get past it. He looks like he's sort of snuck into his dad's cupboard and stolen his suit.
Yeah, no, I would agree. He's out of all of them, he does seem like he doesn't fit the most.
Yeah,
I think Stranger definitely fits the most. He looks
my god, yeah. Stranger looks great.
He looks the part, 100%. He looks great. Also, Francisca. See the difference, right? The difference in Francisca in sort of our world, Adam's world, compared to the alt world, where like she's, you know, the little preppy sort of tartan wearing, you know, sort of sex loving character, compared to this world where she's like sort of no makeup, really like sort of, I don't even know how you describe it, like sort of
very
very
conservatively
practical,
dressed.
very conservative, very
Yeah.
practical. The difference in the two characters is really stark and great for me in
Yeah.
this season.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Also, there was a little hint of the letter as well that
Yeah.
that he had. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, that's kind of what I was focusing on as maybe the thing that tipped him over the edge and sort of started him down this path. We almost got confirmation in this episode that it was Marta who wrote it. I can't actually remember if at the end of the season they said that it was Marta who wrote the letter or not, or if it just pertained to something about Marta. Maybe they did say that she wrote it.
I think he did. Noah said.
Yeah. But well, I guess Noah is potentially not a trustworthy character, so we get reinforcement of the fact that maybe she did write it. I wonder what's in it though. It's going to be something bad. It's got to be, because his reaction when he first read it was tears, and now he seems to have resorted to anger. He's almost like going through the stages of grief by the looks of things. But I'm not sure what could possibly be in it.
Yeah, but it also could just be the fact that it was believably in his mind written by Marta, and he believed Marta to be dead at the time. Like he didn't, and I think even that as well. He's so crabby at the minute because he's realizing that the letter he's held on to all these years was probably written by this Marta and not his Marta.
Yeah, I suppose like to him, maybe she's like kind of a pale imitation of his Marta, and it's this letdown, I suppose, that he doesn't know how to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. Right, so then the next we get Marta coming in to Magnus. Now we've talked a little bit about this, but I thought it was. We'll sort of move on from this quickly, but I wanted to mention how Stranger let Magnus go and cuddle her and say, oh my god, you're here. Then he's like, this is Nick Marta.
Yeah. There's like, it's interesting that you mentioned that actually, because I didn't really pick up on that, but that is quite a manipulative thing to do to be like, go on, like, embrace your sister who you believe to be dead, and they'd be like, oh, she's not actually your sister, so suck it, Magnus.
Yeah.
And Franziska is quite like formidable here as well. Like she's very like accusatory towards her, in a way that she wasn't really, or wasn't as much before. Yeah.
Definitely an interesting dynamic going on in the 1880s, which looking forward to seeing more of. So now there's I suppose you could call it a reveal. At the end of season 2, Katarina was in the tunnel with all the little lights going around, and we finally get confirmation now where she ended up. She ended up in her own world in the 80s. What do you think of that?
I have got a lot to say about Katarina in this episode. I think there's some really, really interesting stuff that goes on both with her character and with the potential things that her character might do in the future. I think it makes sense that she went back to the 80s. I think that was always going to be where she went, because she's looking for Mikkel. I think that the thing that really stood out to me in this is that, or rather, this scene begs the question: why is she staying here? I guess the obvious answer to that is that she wants to be where Mikkel lives for when he comes back.
Yeah.
But in my head, I guess I can imagine her coming to the Kahnwalds initially to be like, "Where's my son?" But then for her to stay there, it speaks of a certain vulnerability in her character, that she's not really thinking things through. Because, Venus and Mikkel came back and she's just broken into their house and is sleeping in there. Like, that's a crime. Like, she could be arrested for doing that. That she's not thinking that clearly, which does come back, I think, repeatedly throughout this episode, that she's kind of out of her depth as well.
Yeah, I would agree with you. So both Katarinas living in this house in both worlds as well.
Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, that is interesting.
Very different reasons, obviously.
Yeah, slightly different circumstances. And a welcome return of "You Spin Me Right Round" here as well, which is lovely. Haven't had that. There was a few
great tunes.
Yeah.
Few great tunes in this episode.
Yeah,
young Katarina has a good taste of music.
She does. Yeah. It's a shame her mum doesn't agree with it. That's what we're going to say for now.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So next we get the scene of Mads Nielsen, little Madsy Nielsen. I'm going to call him that forever now. I love that I picked up on that. But so Mads Nielsen is having a sort of a remembrance, sort of a service anyway. They buried nothing. They've sort of made a little grave, little marker and there's sort of a service going on. I wouldn't even. It's not really even a funeral, kind of a funeral, but
yeah, it's like a remembrance service. Or something.
and then so Yana basically confronts Tronte in front of everyone and says, like, you know, if you looked for our son the same amount you looked for Claudia, then you would have found him by now.
Yeah, I think it's quite a realistic depiction of grief, and the bitterness she feels. I think it's really interesting that when she upends his bag to reveal all of the like newspaper clippings about Claudia, it seems like it's almost exclusively stuff talking about her disappearance rather than emotional items or anything that would imply a romantic connection. I do think I think it's obvious they have had a romantic connection in the past, but the fact that he now appears to be looking for her makes me think that even at this stage Tronte was aware of the time travel stuff in some way, maybe in a kind of broad way, but I think he knows it's not just a case of I love this woman and she's disappeared to me. It's more something was going on here.
It's a case to be solved.
Yeah,
I could definitely see that him sort of definitely thinking there's something up here. I think he would think that there was no way she would have left Regina for certain.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I did a Dark Discussions episode this week all about Ulrich and talking about the thing he did in season 1. You know, Helga getting hit in the head with a rock. Now the comments seem to be mostly on the side of you don't know unless you're in the position / you know, he was trying to save his son. You know, at the same time, I gave my thoughts on that video, so go and watch that video if you want to see my thoughts. But I will just say, is there any argument that Ulrich is a good guy after you realize he didn't go to his own brother's memorial service?
Yeah, he was busy. He was off doing something with Katerina, probably in the woods.
He was just at school.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
Take
he was
the day
just
off,
school,
Ulrich.
wasn't he? Yeah, you can have the day off for that. Good lord. That is that is odd.
Absolute slave drivers, like what they've got them in on a Sunday in school.
Yeah.
They're not letting them off for their son's memorial, their brother's memorial service.
Yeah.
Jeez, what are they running over
It's
there?
outrageous. It's outrageous. It's well, I mean,
Germany, have a word with yourself, will you?
Yeah.
All right, okay. So next up, we get so we're talking about Claudia, and then in true dark fashion, or in true editing fashion, we get Claudia. Then, so they show us Claudia. She's in the future. She's caring for Regina in a room with a red light on, which always sticks in my mind.
She's like a little baby bird under that that heated
like
bulb.
Heat lamp. Yeah,
Yeah.
Exactly. Not very great situation they're living in here.
No.
I didn't really clock. Are they living? I think they're living in the police station. Is
Yeah,
that true?
they are living in the police station. I'm not 100% sure why, except maybe it's more secure. Maybe there's we see her with guns, so I get like she has bullets. So I guess
Fair
the
enough.
implication is maybe they got the guns from the police station.
Also, there's all like the recording equipment for the
that's true.
interviews and
Yeah.
all.
So and presumably there's lots of like heavy lockable doors as well.
Yeah.
But I enjoy. They don't really do this that often in Dark, but there's like a lot of expository dialogue over the radio, kind of explaining what's wrong. But I think the general translation is that shit's fucked up, like everything's gone wrong.
Well, the apocalypse did just happen. Like
it did.
You know?
Well, and will continue to happen by the looks of things, because throughout this episode, I mean, Vinden doesn't look great, and the report on the radio makes it sound like things are bad everywhere, but it's not full-on end of the world stuff quite yet.
Yeah,
but we're getting
Okay.
there. We're approaching that rapidly.
Obviously, like civil unrest. Like they're still in the aftermath. But it did seem that in the second season in the future, it probably is like a hostile atmosphere.
Yeah, we haven't got like gunships roaming the skies and like war bands cruising around on APCs looking for food and fuel.
Not just yet.
No.
We can live in hope. Live in hope.
Give it a few years.
So within the same sort of time zone, whatever, they have Peter and Elizabeth sort of out looking for Franziska and Charlotte. What did you think about the decision to have Peter and Elizabeth staying in Benny's caravan?
Listen, he knows it well. He knows it well. He knows where they kept the good booze and the food. So
I need a place that feels like home.
yeah, exactly. Like he's comfortable there, and that's what's important. Yeah, the irony of that was not lost on me, and I hope he didn't explain to Ellie how he knows his way around that caravan. Is all I can hope.
Pass me the can opener.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Top shelf.
next to the drawer with all the vibrators in it. It's I like the depiction. I might have been, in fact I think it probably was like pouring with rain in the Claudia scene as well, but I like
they were inside mostly though.
Yeah, but I like the little nods to acid rain, because obviously Hannah mentioned it in the 80s, like watch out for the acid rain because of Chernobyl, and then we see this like torrent of radioactive rain like just pouring down on Vinden. It's a sort of moment that made me laugh a little bit. It's like, yeah, now you have to worry about it, Hannah. This is what acid rain looks like.
Yeah, like Hannah actually escaped back, so she doesn't have to worry about it.
Yeah, she doesn't. She's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we're back in 1880s, and a little bit more of a curtain is opened up in terms of the sort of history of the Sic Mundus cult. So we haven't learned. We learn more later in the episode for a full blown sort of how that came about, sort of thing. But you meet old Gustav Tarnhaus here. What do you think of old Gustav?
I think the fact that he's blind is perhaps a metaphor, despite him saying that he sees more than people with eyes. That's
just not true. It's just not true, Gustav.
Yeah. It's just
That's
literally
not how
isn't
blindness
true.
works.
It literally isn't true, and it metaphorically isn't true either, Gustav. Yeah, so I mean, it's my read of his position in this is that he's like, Bartels literally says it later in the episode, that he's like kind of the last bastion of this group of people who are trying to learn how to time travel, basically, and they're sort of dying out at the point that like he's literally the last member at the point that Stranger and the gang turn up, and kind of revitalize Sic Mundus, but it's still. I was surprised by that, to be honest, because I mean the presentation of the Sic Mundus like underground lodge makes it look really old, like not 2 generations old. I think he said it, like Bartos says that Gustav's father or grandfather maybe founded it, and it looks older than that to me. But I mean, maybe they're not going to get into it, but it's I think it's interesting that there's a blind man who's kind of in charge of things. Like it's perhaps a case of the blind leading the blind here a little bit. Well,
there we go. So I will also say as well, at this point in the series when I was watching it the first time, now I'm not going to go into whether any more is revealed on this, but that Sic Mundus photograph with all the characters in it, when I was watching this, my prediction, well, we saw in my theories video, my prediction was that was going to be the fella in the middle was going to be H.G. Tannhaus.
Yeah.
When I was watching the season 3 the first time, I took the inclusion of Gustav Tarnhaus here to mean, because I think the way the timeline would work would be that this is H.G. Tannhaus's grandfather.
Yes, I think so. That sounds
so.
Right.
That's how I think that would work. So I took this to mean that either him or his son was actually going to be the character. Now I'm not going to say whether it actually comes to pass, but at this point in the series, I was like, well, I was right that guy's a Tarnhaus. You know?
Yeah, half points.
It's half.
They do look quite alike as well, I think.
Yeah, they're definitely going for a particular look for that family, definitely.
Yeah.
So and then Stranger, before Tarnhaus come in, Stranger was actually going to attack Marta.
He was getting really aggressive.
Yeah, and he was like saying like, "How did you get here? What device did you use? How did you get here?" So very aggressive. So we'll see how that plays out in the next few episodes.
Yeah, it doesn't seem great in 1888.
Yeah, no, definitely not. But anyway, so Katharina has been sort of pottering about the school, handing out some posters. It wasn't really a prediction of you, but it is another thing you got wrong. This is one of the first examples of. Is it the first? I think it is. Of the two of the same character seeing each other. Now, actually, sorry. We were talking about just the old characters, weren't we?
I think we were.
I think we were.
Because I think Claudia's met Claudia already, which I think was what we talked about.
I was thinking. I was so ready to say you were wrong on something. Yeah. I was so ready.
Yeah, leave off. All right, I'll be the one.
I jumped the gun. I jumped the gun on that.
Yeah, but it was good though. I did like the double Catarinas here. It was and they you know, it's similar to sort of Marta and Jonas, I guess. Like they have that kind of look of knowing between them.
Yeah.
I really liked Ulrich's inverted crucifix necklace in this scene. Like it's really, or inverted cross, I should say. We've had this discussion before. There you go. I've learned.
Yeah.
And him calling her Typhoid Mary is a really weird insult as well. It's like, do you know who Typhoid Mary was, Ulrich? Because there's nothing to do with what anything that Katerina is presenting herself as.
It's just like 80s reference. Yeah.
Maybe it was it must be a movie quote that I've just missed or something. I can't remember anyone calling anyone Typhoid Mary in any of the like John Hughes films, but it must come from something like that. Thinking about it,
Yeah. Maybe,
but it's a real person, so
maybe it was actually a real thing that German teenagers called each other as a slag or something.
Maybe they were taught about Typhoid Mary and the dangers of asymptomatic typhoid carriers in German high school in the 80s. But
you never know.
Could be, yeah.
You never know.
But yeah, it's a good scene, this, and it's funny that Katerina is handing out missing posters of Mikkel once again, but this time they seem to be missing posters. No, actually, I think about this wouldn't make sense. I interpreted them when she found them in the Karnvold house as missing posters that Enos had printed out because Mikkel had disappeared again, but we actually found out later in the episode that he's in protective custody, so she must have brought them with her, I guess. I
think Katerina got them printed.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I was going to say it's funny if she's handing out missing posters for Mikkel, but it's someone else's missing posters for Mikkel because he's gone missing again, but that's not actually what's happened here. So,
like, I can understand why you thought that because it does say Michael Karnvold on it.
Yeah.
But Katarina's obviously not stupid, so she realized that that's what he will be known as.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
And then she gets a little moment with Hannah as well, where she tells the 14-year-old Hannah,
bullies a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
And this is another one of those situations. There's a couple of them in this episode. One quite big one that we'll probably discuss in a couple of scenes' time, where it does make you wonder whether things would have played out the way they did if this conversation hadn't have happened. You know, like threatening her and being like, "Oi, keep your mitts off Ulrich." And it's like,
was there a choice? Did this conversation have to happen?
Yeah, true.
That's the thing.
Cycles.
Anyway, cycles. Yeah. Well, we'll not get back into cycles. So, so in a shot that's very we'll have an extra 3 hours tonight, but basically there's a scene very similar to the scene with Claudia in episode 3, season 1, where Tront is waiting on the black seats in the power plant. Now it's Jasmine that comes to see him, who we know that was Claudia's sort of assistant. But it seems actually that she has. Well, no, this might be me reading a bit too much into it at the minute, but it seems that she has risen to the leader of the power plant at this point. Although, having said that, we maybe just haven't seen the character because they didn't want to introduce a new character. You know.
Yeah, I got the impression it's more, having known a few like kind of office manager PAs in my time, it seems like she's just kind of ticking things over while they're looking to hire a replacement, I guess, because she knows about, you know, how things actually run there. That was that. Yeah. Although I guess she does go into the office later in the episode, so maybe she's an interim. Interim in charge of the plant. Maybe. Well, you know, we all know that whenever they go down into that cave and see the lovely welding work that Boris has done, he's getting the job 100%. Yeah, but I mean, I think her test would be you need to paraglide, abseil down into the paragliding would be a hell of a thing. Abseiling down into that cave in high heels, and she's also pregnant as well, so that's going to be doubly hard for her. So I wouldn't blame her if she fails that test. So here's a question for you. When you saw that she was pregnant, were you questioning whether or not that baby would be someone important? In Dark, it is always worth questioning whenever anyone is pregnant because, come on, it's coming out somewhere at some time. In this case, perhaps not. We don't know for certain, but it seems unlikely given how this episode ends. Exactly. Okay, so then we get Claudia standing in front in the bunker in the future, or it's actually not the future, but it's kind of the present day in the show, but it's kind of the post-apocalyptic future still. So she's standing in the bunker, and she's starting to amass the photographs, like sort of, she's putting them up. Luckily, like she's putting them in the exact same spot, which is good. And to me, this was quite strange seeing the wall
sort of without the strings. Like
Yeah,
she
like
hasn't
half
started
formed.
she hasn't started connecting everything yet. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But it was cool. What did you think that we got to see her doing this?
I thought it was cool. I thought more interesting actually is the choice to cut between her and Peter Doppler standing in the same position.
Yep.
There's a lot of that in this episode, which to me felt like it implies a relationship at the very least of intent, but for some reason in my head I was thinking maybe there's like a blood relationship here, which made me start thinking that maybe they're related to each other, because there is a lot of cutting between Claudia and Peter doing very similar things in this episode. This one is the most explicit because it's literally a match cut between them. So that kind of got the old theory wheels turning. And then the cut to Peter, something really stood out to me in the scene where he's looking at the photos of corpses in the army camp outside the power plant. I mean, first of all, that's a really great way. It's used in so many kind of like disaster movies and post-apocalyptic things, like a wall of memorials or photographs to kind of show the scale of the disaster. You know, like we don't see all of them, we see a tiny few, but there's like hundreds of them. So, you know, we know it's bad. But on one of them, the first one he looks at, you've got Jürgen Obendorf on the right, Benny Voller in the middle. One on the left doesn't have a name and has a scar on its mouth that looks an awful lot like the youngest member of the cleanup crew, which seems interesting to me.
Yeah,
it's if they.
We will say, for people who don't listen to the listener Q&A, Conrad did confirm in that listener Q&A that he knows that the trio are the same person.
Oh yeah, of course I do. Come on, guys.
He didn't mention it because it was so obvious.
I didn't mention it because it was like, well, they all have the same scar and they all literally match what they're doing with their hands. Like they're pretty obviously the same person. But,
yeah, I think it's a cleft palate. I think that's what they have.
Is it a cleft palate or is it just a scar? Yeah. But
we as a fandom talk about them having a cleft palate. I don't know I don't know if there is anything official that literally says those words, but maybe we could check that darknetflix.io. Maybe it'll say on there. But
yeah.
Anyway,
but yeah. So that the one on the left looks very much like the youngest member of that trio, which makes me think that maybe they are from an alternate timeline, because the youngest one is dead here, and maybe their purpose is to, I don't know, like exact revenge on this timeline for allowing them to die so young in this one. But yeah, the lack of a name under that photo and the fact it's so prominently featured on screen makes it feel important to me, particularly next to Benny and Jürgen, where it's like, oh, who the hell cares about those characters?
What do you think then? Are you saying that they're from the alternate world we've met, or they're from a different world?
I think it's probably...
I think you originally thought that they were going to be like sort of your original theory was that they're part of Sic Mundus, sort of Sic Mundus' cleanup crew. So therefore, that would imply they're from our world, like Adam's world. But are you saying that you think they might be from the other world now?
Well, yeah. I mean, I wonder if Sic Mundus kind of stretches across worlds. Because if that is right, I don't see how they can be from this world if the youngest one died here. So yeah, I guess that I think they're probably from the alternate world we've seen at this point. I'd be really surprised if they get into more alternate worlds, just because I don't know how the hell they're going to show that in the 6 episodes of television they have remaining. But yeah,
well, you never know with this show.
No, that's true.
Right. Okay. So next up, Katarina goes to the police station, which we've talked about. She finds out about being protective custody. Also, she goes to question the police officer. Now, this is actually the same police officer that came in to sort of take over Egon back in the second season. Yeah, and he was basically saying, "I can't tell you anything." But then he said something at the end. Whenever she was asking about Ulrich, she didn't know it was Ulrich yet, but she was trying to find out. But then before he left, he said, "If you come back again, I'll put you in protective custody." Yeah. I thought That's a strange threat.
Yeah. Do you mean
Does
arrest
he just
her?
mean
That's what you actually
he just means arrest her, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Protective custody?
Yeah.
I'll change your name, move you town to keep you safe.
Yeah,
You come
listen,
back here
he's a
again.
police officer, not an actor, all right? He's not good at doing one-liners and zingers.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. That's what I was thinking, though. It was a bit strange.
Yeah.
All right, Tronta, Regina, car, dog, go.
Yeah, so... okay. I've got some theories, ladies and gentlemen, about
That's
this.
why I introduced it like that, because I thought you might.
One of them I think is pretty much confirmed by the end of this episode. I put it in the Matrix because I thought of it before the episode told it to me, but I'll walk everyone through it. It doesn't quite come up
Okay.
in this scene, but I'm prepping it here. So we know that the relation. This is another one of those these scenes where the cutting between characters feels interesting to me. There's a lot of like stuff between Peter and Ellie, and then Tronta, Claudia, and Regina in various different ways throughout this episode, which is part of what made me start thinking, oh, maybe all these characters are related to each other, which is going to come up here again. So that we know that the relationship between Tronta and Claudia is most likely sexual. They've been shown sort of holding hands. I think they might have even kissed each other on the cheek in the first season when they meet at the power plant. I can't remember, but
Well, he
I
was
think
fiddling with her hand, yeah.
I think it's definitely implied that there's a sexual relationship there.
And also, like, he did show her, when they were kids,
That's true. Yeah, that's true. So they've been going at it for a long time.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that in this car journey, Tronta and Regina's conversation largely focuses around Claudia's disappearance is maybe the writing trying to cover up for the fact that there is a relationship between Tronta and Regina, which I feel like by the end of this relationship is all but confirmed, really. And you can kind of tell in I've forgotten the actress who plays Regina's name now, which is bad of me, but the way she kind of conveys like a nervousness when she's around Tronta, and the way that he kind of offers to help her but doesn't really know what to do, makes me feel fairly confident that he's actually her father. And that makes this episode all the more heartbreaking. But like they're kind of dropping these hints in that this might be the case with how this relationship ends, and it also makes it quite interesting, I think, when we look at the relationship between Yana and Tronta, because from what we've seen of them, they don't really seem to have much of a relationship at all. Like they don't actually seem to like each other that much.
Yeah.
Especially when compared to Claudia and Tronta, and we know that Claudia and Tronta's relationship preceded Yana and Tronta's, because, as you say, they've been showing their genitals to each other since they were like 15 years old. It's a tale as old as time. Like, that's very mature of me. I apologize. But so this wasn't like, their relationship, that Yana and Tronta's relationship, that is, it lost its luster and he found another woman or something. It seems odd that he would choose Yana when Claudia is right there, which makes me think that maybe he was told at some point that he could no longer be romantically involved with Claudia, possibly by a traveller or something along those lines.
Interesting. I like that idea. So at some point in his life, either, at some point, if your theory was to be believed, at some point after Regina was born, or after I was going to say Sabrina. Or Clarissa.
Witch.
Nah. Anyway, so basically, after she was conceived, someone came to him and said, "See that woman? Don't go near her again."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wonder if it was old Claudia actually. Like she was just like, "Listen, I know how this works out. Stay away from me, all right?"
That would actually have a lot of symbolism in it, because we know that she said to Agnes, "My mother will make you very happy if you let her." So she's sort of, trying to get a relationship going in one way and then stopping it in another.
But I think it would be very sort of poetically tragic to have Tronta as this character who is told he can't be with the woman he loves and has to try and make something out of this kind of fake relationship with Yana, and then by the end of this episode he's told to do something way worse, and I also suspect he was told to do that by the woman he loves, and it's this character who is subjected to this sequence of things he has to do despite not wanting to, and deal with the repercussions of having done them.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I also think there's a really cool parallel / perpendicular between Tronta and Ulrich, because like they're both obviously cheating cretins. So they both like, you know, the Nielsen's love to play away from home, so to speak. But all except Magnus, you know, and Michael, obviously. But anyway.
Oh, he would have got the chance. I know the look.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, he would. If he didn't have his issues in his brain, he would have definitely. But basically, the perpendicular, that was the parallel. The perpendicular I'm talking about, and I am continuing this, is the fact that Tronta genuinely loves Claudia, and he wants to find her, and he wants her back. Whereas Ulrich, his other woman, literally, I don't think he would care if she died. So
no, the only time he cared about her was when she maybe was going to come and save him in the 50s.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a really interesting thing. Are we saying that maybe Tronta is a more loving person than Ulrich?
Well, I think, in a way, I think, yeah, no, I mean, I think he's actually much more faithful than Ulrich, because I don't think he's ever betrayed the fact that he loves Claudia. I think he has married Jana maybe because he was told to do so, or he was told he couldn't be with Claudia. And obviously that's not great, to marry someone and then like who you don't love and know that you're going to be unfaithful to them, or either physically or emotionally or whatever. But I think his betrayal is a lot more honest than Ulrich's, whereas Ulrich is just like, I don't know, I want to sleep with other women, I guess.
There was literally no reason.
Yeah.
I was trying to come up with a reason for my dark discussion video. Like, what is the reason? Like,
no, I think like, I think Ulrich is quite a he's sort of like chaos manifested in a way as a character. Like in a show where lots of characters acts are kind of like predetermined, I think he just does things because he wants to do them, and he doesn't have a good reason for pretty much any of them, with the exception of trying to kill Helga, I guess.
Well, that's the thing. Was it Adam who said it? We're not free in what we do because we're not free in what we want. Yeah. So there we go. Well, let him off the hook then. Let him out. Let him out of that mental institution. It wasn't his fault. Right. Okay. Next up, Claudia is recording the message that we heard at the very beginning of season 2. Yeah. Were you surprised to see her recording it this early, or did you see that thing? Yeah. I'm just interested to hear your thoughts on this.
I suppose I wasn't sure when she would do it, to be honest. I knew from the voice that it was a middle-ish Claudia. Yeah. But yeah, this is almost straight after the apocalypse, really. So
3 months, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, relatively speaking. So like, she's not wasting any time in getting her thoughts down. But we haven't seen her directed to do this, so I guess it's just her being her typical self and kind of figuring things out, and acting on her own initiative to put things in place for other people to, like Jonas, to receive this information when they need it.
Yeah, like I would imagine that whenever Jonas at the end of season 2, when he took Claudia to 2019 or 2020, sorry, it was just to save Regina. Like I would imagine that's what it was for. I don't think Jonas said, hey, you need to go and do this, you need to go and do this, you need to, I think it was just very much save Regina. Maybe he gave a little bit of stuff, but I don't. Yeah, as you say, I think she's just doing this because she wants to find a way to.
I need an itemized list of everything that went on in that power plant. You need to record it all on Betamax.
Yeah, I'll come and check. I'll check it out whenever I'm younger and it's 33 years in the future. Yeah. All right. Okay. So we move on then to a really, I don't know. I was going to call it creepy, but it's, I don't know how you read it. It's the scene in the Kahnwald house where Peter's going upstairs, Elizabeth is downstairs, and then Noah comes in and they have a little bit of a back and forth.
Oh, no, there's a frisson between them. There's instant chemistry between them, which is less creepy now because... Do you say there was only a year between the seasons 2 and 3?
Yeah.
Because I feel like... what's her name? I wrote it down. Carlotta von Falkenhayn, like the actress who plays Ellie. She seems... I mean, obviously it's probably puberty, but she seems like she's aged about 5 years in the space of like a year. Like she looks like a young woman now, whereas she looked like a little girl in the previous season, and that helps make this feel less creepy because Noah is clearly quite a few years older than her.
Yeah, and he knows, like, the time, the clock is just ticking now. He knows, like, well, she might be a bit young now, but we're here for 33 years or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Might as well get comfortable.
But look, speaking as a teacher of teenage boys, sometimes you go off in June at the end of the year, come back in September, and they look like they've aged 3 years. Like it happens that quickly.
Just full beard. Yeah, no, and yeah, I mean, she's sprouted up, and Noah's performance here is really. In fact, both of them are really good here. I think I wrote down his name as well because I haven't really mentioned it before, but he's got a great surname. It's Max Schimmelpfennig, which I know Pfennig is penny, so I'm not sure what Schimmel means, but it's something.
Is that going to
penny.
come into the penny theories? Maybe.
Well, yeah, exactly. Maybe. How deep does this go? But yeah, they're both great here. There's a good chemistry between them, and then Peter running down to play the kind of overprotective father is it's quite sweet actually. He's very, his relationship with Ellie is quite nice to keep returning back to because it's quite a pure relationship. Although the revelation
and it is canon in this show in my mind now that they make marmalade together.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
they're still they're making it in Benny's trailer. They've dumped out one of the jars of lube that Benny has, and they're using that to make marmalade.
Yeah, premium marmalade.
But yeah, the revelation that Peter's going to be killed is quite sad as well, and that's the other one I was thinking about when talking about moments where I wonder if it would happen if he hadn't told him that it was going to happen, or whether it's all just predestined to happen in this way.
Exactly, like it's you know what it's like. It's like a magician setting the cards in a deck where they need to be. Yeah, and then when the trick happens, people will be surprised, but they shouldn't really have been.
yeah. Like if you're surprised by Peter dying in like 2 episodes time, I've got bad news for you, folks.
Yeah, but I will say as well that the fact that now this young Noah has he's inherited the older version of himself's stinger. Whatever it is. So that wasn't a good impression of it, but he's inherited the score, and it really doesn't feel out of place on him. No, he has the same energy to me.
Yeah, he's very good. Like I do miss Mark Vashke. I really hope we see him once this season, although I'm not that hopeful for it. But Max Schimmelpfennig is very, very good. Like he's filling the boots comfortably, which is a big compliment because those are pretty damn big boots to fill. That's one of the best characters in the whole show that he's effectively replacing there. And yeah, the stinger suits him down to the ground. Yeah,
it's great. So Bartos comes in and confirms one of my Back to the Future 3 theories.
Which one was that?
Well, the one where they're like, I think you had the same theory, parallel thinking there. It was the idea that he came, that they accidentally got zapped there because, like, at the end of that Back to the Future 2, the DeLorean gets hit by a lightning bolt and he accidentally gets zapped to 1885.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So like that's exactly what happened here. Like the stranger didn't intend to go here, but now that they are here accidentally, they now have no fuel, which is literally the storyline of Back to the Future 3. So
yeah, it is very similar. It is very similar to that, and there's a great line in this exchange actually, where it's very dry humor from Bartos, where he says like, "It's not that easy to get nuclear fuel from the future in 1888." Which is like, yeah, no shit. But it's but Bartos is quite funny in this episode. I have to give it to him, and yeah, you're absolutely right. This is a Back to the Future plot. I don't think this one's going to end quite as triumphantly as Back to the Future 3 does in my memory.
Hopefully.
Maybe there'll be a gunfight.
We haven't had any ravines named after certain characters that could change. Clayton Ravine changed to Eastwood Ravine. But if this show's to be believed so far, so things wouldn't change, so...
Well, I mean, they have, like, we're kind of finding out they have already in this episode, aren't we? Because Stranger's confirmed that the Martyr stuff never happened to him.
There's something going on, definitely. Like, Stranger has said it a couple of times now, so we have to believe him. He never went through what young Jonas, what we're watching, went through.
Which, I mean, it either... perhaps that's why he's so aggressive towards her, actually, on reflection. Because, basically, everything he has done to try and change it has failed. And yet, in strolls this... Alt Marto is like, oh yeah, I met Jonas. It never happened to you. I'm changing things, all the time. Don't worry about it. And he immediately just thinks she's lying. I guess, which totally makes sense. But yeah, there's a good. I don't know if you want to talk about it now, but the sort of Tannhaus monologue at the end of this scene is quite interesting. I thought.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of him talking about taking away all the pain and all the disasters and creating this perfect world. I think once again. It's been a while since we've had this from Adam, because obviously we haven't seen Adam for a little while. But it reveals the sort of hubris at the core of Sigmundus's belief system, I think, that they alone have the means to sort of manipulate time and change all of these things, and that they are like of the right moral fiber to shoulder that responsibility and not be corrupted by it or abuse it, which I think is just patently untrue of pretty much all humans. I think that's too much power for any one person to have, because you will just be corrupted by it ultimately, as you pursue selfish ends, even if you pursue them for, philanthropic goals. And I think that's why the show is ultimately positioning them as the antagonists, if not outright villains, because they are these people who are like clouded by the potential this power offers them, and don't realize how dangerous how dangerous their ideas actually are.
Yeah, and like it sort of goes along with that a little bit when you said that, is that Gustav Tannhaus, he's the last member of the secret society of Sigmundus. So it would make you believe that he's pushed everyone else away. Now, I don't think it's that they're all dead. Maybe it is, but I think it's that he. One thing is they probably weren't successful. That's one thing. The second thing would be is that I think that the way he's talking, it seems very absolute, and only a Sith deals in absolutes. So I would say, he's pushing people away. But now Stranger sort of, he's got a partner in Stranger now who needs this to work.
Yeah.
Even if he wants to not be Adam, he needs it to work.
Yeah, like he's got someone now who's as desperate as he is, basically.
Yeah, it's ironic actually, because if Stranger just stopped and thought for a minute, he would have been like, if I just don't make this machine, then that's breaking the cycle. So
I can just choose not to do this. Well, I mean, I guess based on what you find out at the end of this, time will somehow potentially correct that to make sure someone does make that machine.
Maybe,
but I mean, you are right though. There's no reason why it has to be him. Like he does have the choice not to do it.
Exactly. Well, again, it's the whole thing of like, free. You're not free to choose what you want. It just keeps coming back and back. Okay, so now Katarina goes to the asylum, or the sort of, it's not really an asylum, but kind of is. And we see a woman behind the desk who is the same character who was behind the desk in the first time we went here in season 2.
Yeah.
When Egon went there. Now, I don't think at that point there was a huge focusing in on the name tag.
No,
but
there wasn't.
There is this time. So what do you make of this part?
Okay, so I wrote down so much on these two scenes. So first, Katarina meeting her mother, and then Katarina meeting Ulrich. So I'll try and break this up as much as possible, so you can have a go in the middle of my monologue. But so first thing I wanted to say about this scene is that, and I don't know how to say her name actually. Is it Jordi? Her name is spelled Jordi, the I-S, the actress who plays
Jordi. Jordi. We'll say Jordi.
Yeah. Jordi Trebell. She is so good in this scene. The way she kind of captures so much pain in her performance is wonderful. And I think this is the most vulnerable that we've probably seen Katarina as a character.
Yeah, definitely.
And she's like this, like this bullish, single-minded woman who's reduced to tears as she's transported back to this abusive relationship with her mother. And I feel like there's so much that's gone into transforming her character in this episode. So it's not just her performance, which is really good, but I feel like it's supported by things like her costume design in this episode. So I didn't mention it earlier because I was going to mention it here. But when she first woke up in the Karnvald house, I made a joke while I was watching it about her jumper being like, "Oh, nice jumper, Katarina." But on reflection from this scene, she's wearing this kind of like oversized coat, which makes her look childish. And then she's got a jumper, which would be more suited to a teenager. Yeah. And it's the show visually supporting that theme of Katarina being broken down to her childlike state, basically, in front of her mother. Yeah, which I think is just fantastic in terms of a commitment to developing that side of her character and showing that vulnerability.
Yeah, no, I think you're dead on there. 100%. I'm not going to say I was thinking in terms of the costume there. Usually I don't have to do that in my household. Emma does that for me. But basically, like, I got that feeling from her too, is that any time she's around her mother, or even just transported back to this time, she is childlike, because this is basically, Katarina's done a really good job in her life, if you think about it. Like the household she came from, we know we've had a few examples now of her mum being physically aggressive towards her, beating her. So that's got to carry trauma with it.
Yeah.
And it seems that Katarina was doing such a good job of living her life, getting over this trauma, sort of living with it, I would say. You don't never fully get over it. But then her son goes missing, and it spirals her down this rabbit hole till eventually she's back in the same place she was at the same time when she was a teenager, having this abuse done to her. And I think that she's just a broken woman by this point. Yeah,
no, I agree completely. I think, so I've got a theory coming out of just this short scene, and it's not really based on anything apart from a feeling, really, but it's to do with the St. Christopher pendant that we see on her mum, which I found it quite interesting, because Katerina recognizing it, and the fact that we know that this pendant, or one very much like it, will come into Marta's possession, it implies a closeness with her mother, perhaps, that isn't immediately obvious. Like the fact that there's that connection between them. It's like, would you be that emotionally connected to something to something owned by someone who is emotionally abusive or physically abusive towards you? Like, maybe, but it seems unlikely. But the fact that Marta knows about this saint and identifies them when she finds the pendant with Jonas by the lake implies that Katerina also spoke to her about that in some detail. But I think the thing that really stands out to me about that is that this is the third time, maybe even the fourth or fifth time that this pendant has come up, and it makes me think that Marta and Jonas finding it at the lake can't be by chance. There's a significance of this pendant to the Nielsen family that makes me think maybe Katerina will leave this for Marta to find at the lake in maybe some kind of final act. I guess she went through the caves, so she could technically come back, but something about the way her character is being positioned at the moment, she needs some kind of I guess kind of conclusion to her arc, and we know that she's someone who really cares about her children, so I could see her doing something like leaving the pendant at the lakeside and then maybe becoming the drowned woman in the lake. Now, I don't know if she's actually going to literally be drowned in the lake or not, but that link between the
Were you insinuating that she'll commit suicide?
I don't know if it will be suicide, but I feel like the fact that the St. Christopher pendant is at the lake, the fact it's clearly important to Katerina and significant enough for Marta to recognise it, and the fact that we know that there's this story of a drowned woman in the lake makes me think it's more likely that drowned woman, whatever the truth behind that story ends up being, it's more likely that will be Katerina than what I originally guessed at, with it being Agnes. As to how she'll get there, it could be suicide. It could be, I don't know if there's anyone who'd really murder her. It could be, something to do with her and Ulrich trying to escape and getting into an accident or something like that. I'm not certain as to the
how's she gonna get the medal from her mum.
That's a good point.
It's funny that you went to Katerina is the one who's going to do that, rather than actually her mom is the one that, Well,
she doesn't. I'm
not saying her mom would leave it for Marta, but I'm saying her mother is the person who ends up in that way.
I know what you mean. I feel like if they were going to do that, they'd have spent more time establishing her mother as a character that had some kind of connection to Marta. I mean, they could still do it. The writing in the show is good enough that they could fill in those blanks in a couple of episodes to get us to the point where we'd be ready to accept that. But I feel like Katerina's driving force throughout this entire show has been or in fact her one redeeming quality, in fact, as well as the thing that drives her, is that she loves her children unequivocally. Like, she's not always maybe the best parent because she focused too much on Mikkel's disappearance and kind of ignored her other children.
Yeah,
but I could see her in a sort of final acts trying to do something to help or save Marta, or leave something for Marta before dying or whatever is going to happen to her.
Like her last act is for her children.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I was by the end of the the very brief scene with her mother. So I went down. I wrote basically a small essay on that scene.
Yeah, well, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Okay, so what about the actual scene where she goes up and sees Ulrich then?
So this was probably the best scene of the episode. I think Katarina got all the good ones. I think in this episode. So I'm sure you've noticed this before, but shots of like hands are quite common in Dark, particularly with Ulrich, because his are often covered in blood or dirt because of the stuff he gets up to. So for me, the top-down shots of Katarina's hands reaching out to his sort of gnarled old hands across the chessboard carry some really beautifully symbolic weight. Sort of these two people reaching out for one another across time and space, and like the games that people are playing with those powers, because they're united ultimately by the fact that even though their relationship has gone terribly wrong, they do still love one another. And I think there's a very, very short sort of piano motif that plays as they hold hands and sort of briefly share this moment, and it's really beautiful, and it really tugs at the heartstrings. I think you don't often hear little moments of just isolated piano like that, but it comes through here, and it really, really got to me.
Yeah, that's lovely. What do you think? Is there anything to read into the idea that the black pieces were on Ulrich's side and the white pieces were on Katarina's side?
I didn't notice that actually, but yeah, sure. Katarina's the good guy, Ulrich's the bad guy.
Yeah, like the way they're going about getting their son back, maybe.
I mean that is a good point.
I'm sure on set that day they were like, which way should we have the pieces face? Like, I'm sure little decisions like that happen. Having said that, do we read into it in terms of the writing of the show? No, but I'm sure on the set that day they were like, have the black ones face Ulrich. You know?
Yeah, he's probably the more evil of the two. If we're gonna pick one, I mean maybe it was planned. There's such craft to the way that so many of the episodes that we've seen are created that it wouldn't surprise me at all if they had that all planned out as well. But as you say, it could also just be, oh, we need to face the chessboard one way. Well, obviously Ulrich gets the black side because he's the bad guy.
Exactly, and that's if I was a set decorator or if I was a director, and I was setting that scene up. There's no way that a human being wouldn't think in their mind, especially human beings that this particular in detail plus this creative wouldn't think, for a second, which way should we put it? You know, of course they would in that split second, even. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah. All right. So, Jasmine has a few visitors.
Yep.
CUC's come to see her.
CUC, they're back. Don't call it a comeback. They've been here for years. Yeah, murdering a pregnant woman is pretty bad as murders go. I would say. If we didn't think that these guys were bad guys before now, I feel like this is the moment where it's like, all right, villains. I've got it now. I'm on board with them.
Also, I just want to say something about this scene is that the fandom sort of believe. Not everyone, obviously. The fandom, you can't. Everyone's individual, but a lot of people in my comments in the past have questioned why they did this or why they needed to do this, as if they went to the power plant to do this. My read of this scene has always been, if she didn't go in that door, she would still be alive. That's always been my read. And maybe they knew she was going to come in, but I don't think that their mission was to kill her. You know what I mean?
I half agree with you. I think they would have still killed her just because, however minor it is, she's still a little bit of a loose end. Like she knows a tiny bit. But I agree with you that I don't think they're there for her. I think they're there to get rid of all the research Claudia was doing and make sure that no one can follow in her steps to compromise what Sigmundus is trying to do. I think they probably would have still come for her because, I mean, does she really know less than Bernd? I don't know. I feel like Bernd probably does know a bit more than her actually, but yeah, I mean, it's just these guys are just very clearly enacting a scorched earth policy. Just anything that could potentially help anyone, burn it all down.
Yeah, guys, we've only got 6 episodes to go. I'm gonna give Conrad a little bone here. All right, is that all right, Conrad?
Go on. I'm always happy for a bone.
Do you not notice what the middle unknown guy was holding when she walked in?
Oh, what, like the folder with the weird numbers in it that Claudia was talking to Bernd, that was referencing for Bernd?
Yep.
that weird science. Again, though, when it comes to science in the show, I'm just like,
could that not maybe be what they were there for though? That had the description of the God particle in it.
Yeah, no, I think that is what they were there for. But I mean, I'm assuming there's probably other stuff in there as well that they're just get rid of all of this. So, what are you implying that they're trying to do something beyond just destroying stuff?
Well, I think why else would they want that folder? You know, like when I saw him holding that folder, I was like, oh, they're going to get that. They want information about the God particle. They're amassing information as well. That was what I thought.
Yeah,
when I saw that.
But why would they burn the Sic Mundus room then? That's kind of like the fact they burned that room makes me think that they're going to do the same thing to everything else they come across, and they're just trying to stop anyone from following in Sic Mundus's footsteps.
This is really off the deep end, but maybe they burnt the room because they knew that like 10 years after that, or 2 years after they burnt the room, you know, there was going to be some like, you know, teenagers going down tagging it. You know, they find their way down.
Good.
They get down there. And they had to burn the room so that the teenagers wouldn't find out what time travel is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe they're not just burning everything down, and they do actually want something. I guess my interpretation of their characters is that they are a destructive force rather than people who are able to build anything. So I'd be surprised if they, you know, do anything other than maybe travel, or use the God particle to travel or something like that. But yeah, I think that folder is definitely what they were there for. But I kind of assumed that maybe they'll keep it. I kind of assumed they were going to burn everything.
Yeah, well, that fits with what they've done so far. So
yeah,
yeah. Okay, so Tronta and Yana then have a very heartfelt conversation. The party's gone. Well, I shouldn't say party.
Yeah, not much for a party.
yeah. That's why Ulrich didn't want to be there. But so basically, Tronta, I think. How did you read the scene in terms of their relationship, these two? Because Tronta was talking about Regina, and it didn't seem like Yana really liked that.
No.
What did you take from this?
Yana's very combative in the way she talks about it, which I guess is realistic when a wife who has been cheated on is talking about the other person in the affair. She's sort of saying you have to decide for us or against us, which is just maybe it's a translation issue, maybe it's just the choice of words, but that feels strangely phrased, and for, you know, what they're actually talking about. But I think the implication here that this is the scene where I was basically like, oh, okay, Tronta is, I'm almost certain he is Regina's dad then, with like how Yana was saying, oh, they never found out who the father was and everything like that. It's like, okay, that feels like we're 90% of the way towards that theory being confirmed. But it's his recommitment to her when he's like, oh, I do need to decide, and then he rubs her hand, makes me kind of almost more convinced of my theory that he's been instructed to be with her, or instructed not to be with Claudia, because it seems like the behaviour of someone who is fundamentally trying to be a good person. He doesn't want to cheat on his wife, but, you know, he was in love with Claudia and he can't just forget those feelings. And he's almost like reluctantly saying like, no, okay, I will be a good husband to you because I don't have any other choice here. The woman I love has disappeared and I have to make the most of this. So he's kind of, he is committing to her, but it seems like he's doing so reluctantly.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. All right.
You've already thrown some big ideas out this episode, which I just really can't wait for you to see them.
I got some biggies, yeah.
Yeah. I can't wait to see them confirmed or not, we'll say. Okay, well then we get the scene you were referencing earlier in terms of Tronta. Old Tronta this time. Took a break from Trimmins and Bush to kill some Regine.
Yep, this caught me off guard, to be honest. I thought he went down with the Bushes in 2020, but here he is.
Down with the Bushes. Come on, get your mind out of the gutter, guys.
Yeah, listen. That's in your mind. I wasn't doing that. You were doing that, listener.
I wasn't doing that.
No, I was talking to the listeners.
Our
hands.
I
are
definitely
clean.
wasn't doing
that. Yeah. So the cut to him in 2020 did surprise me. I didn't think he was going to be around. But we get a nice bit of visual mirroring in this scene. Him sort of touching Regina's hand like he was touching Yana's. Just all these kind of like little nods within scenes that kind of reflect one another is what's making me draw these conclusions about family relationships, like Peter with Claudia and Tronta being Regina's father.
Yeah.
And this scene is heartbreaking, especially if what I believe to be true does end up being true, because I think Tronte is ultimately killing Regina here to save her. I think we've heard Claudia before when she's talked to her younger self say, "Oh, Regina will live," and it was never really that clear what she was talking about. I think at the time I probably assumed it was going to be the cancer that would kill her, but here Tronte says that he's been instructed to do this, and in my mind it must have been older Claudia who told him to do this. I can't believe it would be anyone else. So
why do you think she did that?
Because she needs her younger self to leave Regina and go off and start trying to fix stuff. I would assume, like,
Okay.
she can't be tied down caring for a sick daughter when there's worlds to be saved, I think. And
Is that a theory?
yeah, that's in there. But it's
Okay.
if that is true, that is so heartbreaking for Tronte to have to actually kill his own daughter because he knows that doing so will ultimately save her, but to do that all on faith. It makes him
Yeah.
one of the saddest characters in the whole show, I think.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, the amount of people in the show have done things on faith, then it turns out didn't
Yeah,
change anything.
exactly. Yeah, he's not he certainly wouldn't be the first to have it all blow up in his face. So yeah, that's a hell of a lot of trust he's putting in whoever's instructed him to do it, which I think is Claudia.
Yeah, and like, what did you think? Like, so every season they've sort of focused on different characters. So the first season it was Ulrich, very much so. And then second season it was like Charlotte, it was Hannah. Third season it's now really Tronte, Katarina. What do you think about the choice of the characters to push to the front of the pack in this series?
It's really interesting. Really interesting. I mean, Katarina, I could kind of see. I said at the end of last season that I thought she was going to become more significant than she had been, which I think is being borne out here. But I am surprised by Tronte. He always seemed like a side character. But I think it's exciting as well because what it shows us is that you can show someone in like 3 scenes or however many Tronte was in previously to this. I really don't. I genuinely don't think it was that many more than that. Probably maybe 4 or 5, but he hasn't had many scenes. And then suddenly here he is getting what looks to be a very major story arc and getting some really, really sort of high notes when it comes to the drama.
It's really interesting. That's
Excuse me.
something that I really like as well in it is that they've sort of decided that, yeah, we like these characters, like, you know, we like these actors, and I'm sure maybe they told the actor like in first season, like, yeah, you're only going to have maybe 1 or 2 scenes in this season, but big plans season 3. Like, I really wonder if they told the actors that, because this show doesn't have any recastings. And a lot of shows do have recastings, or they move characters out and bring new characters in, and they're just the exact same character but with a different name.
Yeah.
This show, you know, it wasn't fully planned from the start. I mean, it was, but then they changed course after season 1, as I've said before. But the idea that every character and every actor that they've needed to come back, even for a small amount of time, has been up for it and been open to do it, and the schedule wise. It just adds so much to the show. See, when you can take a character who's in 1 or 2 scenes and bring them back 2 years later, it adds to the immersion a lot for me.
Yeah, and that the actors themselves are ready to step up to bigger roles. You know, like that Tronte isn't just some guy we joke about trimming bushes because that's the only thing of note he's done for like 3 seasons or 2 seasons, and then suddenly it's like, oh, this is awesome. You know, he's doing really, really good dramatic stuff in these scenes that he's in, both the older and the middle version of himself. And it's funny as well, because I said in the last season that after Egon had died, we were running low on the sort of older, gravelly voiced German actors. And here we get Tronte stepping up to the plate to deliver.
Yeah. Do you think that we're going to get more of young Tronte?
Yes. Yeah, I think we're going to see his past and his future. I think we're going to see what has caused him to choose Jana over Claudia. And I think we're going to see more of him with. I hope we'll see more of him with Regina as well, because that will really make this the sucker punch at the end of this episode hit all the harder as we see them kind of developing a father-daughter rather relationship.
Yeah, although there didn't seem to be anything present in that relationship in the first season when the two of them were alive and well in 2019.
Yes, yeah, that's true. But I mean, they barely saw we barely saw them interact with each other, and that's also like 33 years after this moment where Tronte commits himself to Yana and his current family.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so now Elizabeth and Peter are in the trailer. I picked up on just one moment here that Elizabeth sort of finds the book, like Claudia's old book. Do you think this is is this an allusion to how she sort of starts the rabbit hole down in her own mind? Maybe, you know how by the time 2054 comes along, she's pretty convinced of all this sort of thing. It seems. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's the classic. My parent, who actually does really care for me, is keeping secrets from me, and I'm a rebellious teenager. So I'm going to find solace in the arms of a boyfriend or girlfriend who happens to carry a bunch of ideas about Sigmundus and all that stuff, and as ammunition for her not trusting him, he has this book full of time travel stuff. So yeah, I think this is going to be the start for it, for her, and then she's going to go off and find Noah, presumably after he dies, to carry on her training in the ways of Sigmundus.
Did you just allude to the idea that you think she got this from Noah?
The book?
Yeah.
No, so she's got the
Peter had it, remember?
Yeah, so Peter has it, but she has the note that she was sharing with Noah where it says
right.
mother daughter caves, which is a nice little visual metaphor as well, or mum sister caves, because it's like, there's also a portal in the caves that might take you to see your mother and your sister.
But also in the next scene, her mother and daughter are in caves.
They bloody are, yes.
Not her mother and daughter, but mother and daughter. And her mother and her daughter.
Yes, yeah. They're all the gang's all here, all two of them, and the four roles they occupy.
/1 billion of them.
Yeah,
yeah. So they're there, and it seems like I like the way they did it. It was very somber. It was very silent, no dialogue, and like Charlotte basically found out what the relationship is.
Yeah. And then they do they mirror the little head bump from the first season, just as kind of, for me, a kind of silent acceptance of their really weird relationship that they have.
One of the weirdest, I would say.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to get weirder. It is hard to get weirder than that.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so do you expect us to see a lot of this feature this season, or do you expect it to sort of fade away now, or it'll come up every now and then? I
don't know. I don't know how much there is to do there, really. I mean, there's Claudia and Charlotte rather, and Ellie are there, obviously, but I mean, I think there's gonna be a bit, because I expect to see a bit more of the brown-haired girl, just some kind of confirmation of maybe who she is, or
the scar on her face. That one,
yeah, the scarred girl.
Yeah,
but I don't know how. I don't think it's gonna play that significant a part. Watch as that becomes like the main time zone that we spend.
Yeah, I was baiting that. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah,
that's what I am. I'm a fisherman.
It's cruel. Yeah.
You're my catch.
Yeah.
All right. So up next, we get the scene where Katarina's mom, Helene, smacks her across the head.
Yeah, she's listening to a great song that this interrupts as well. I don't know what song it is, but I was like, oh, yes, finally, some more 80s jams. And then smacks on the head. I don't know. I mean, this is perhaps...
smacks on the head, almost as if it was a metaphorical slap on Conrad's head.
Yeah.
Saying... Of course, the rape allegation in season 1 wasn't real.
Yeah. I should have known better, and there I was being struck across the head for being so foolish. I this relationship, maybe this is me being naive, but it feels to me like they're saying that there's some animosity here. Maybe that's just the nature of an abusive relationship between a parent and their child. But her mum looks at her with like such hatred in her eyes, and I don't really understand why. Maybe I hope we'll find out a bit more about that. Has she mentioned her dad at all? I'm trying to think if her dad has ever come up in this.
No, never. It's never come up.
Okay, so maybe there is something dark in how she was born or something like that, that causes her mum to hate her. Like, she reminds her of something traumatic. But there's definitely something in this relationship that feels like it goes beyond the pale of what I don't want to say like what I would expect of an abusive parent, because obviously that's horrific in and of itself. But her mum really seems to dislike her. Yeah, and
I've talked at length on Dark Discussions before and in previous videos before that about the idea of cycles in this show. Now, I'm not going to get back into those, but the cycles of abuse mirror real life very much so. So, like, in my mind, like, the cycle of abuse here is kind of broken in a way. I credit Katarina for sort of almost breaking a cycle of abuse, because it would have been, in real life, this is what happens. If you're abused, you're more likely, now obviously not 100%, but you're more likely to become an abuser yourself.
Yeah.
Katarina, I think we can, she has a few misgivings in terms of being a mother at certain times, but I'm sure we can say she is not an abuser to those children. So I like to credit Katarina as one of the true breakers of the cycle in the show. Whereas if you think of like Ulrich is not a breaker of the sort of family, like sort of cheating from his father, and then also obviously what he ends up doing. But Ulrich doesn't break that cycle of abuse. Abuse is a strong word in that regard. When killing Helga, not a strong word, but but he continues on as the last generation did, whereas Katarina doesn't, and that's why I always in my mind give her credit as a character.
Yeah, and I think that's fair enough. Like, she, say what you will about Katarina, but she absolutely loves her children. Like, I don't think you can ever doubt that, which is more than can be said for her mother.
Yep, I think that's true. Okay, so montage time. Only thing I'm going to mention before you can mention whatever you want is, Jesus, Yasin's looking good.
That's I'm gonna say it's his second top outfit in that we've seen. Middle Yasin. I called him Asin then. I just concatenated Alexander and Yasin.
This isn't
into
middle
name.
Yasin. It is middle Yasin.
Yeah,
You're right,
middle Yasin.
Obviously, young Yasin was in the first season.
Yeah, it was the baby, or was a child, I guess, not baby. But it's not quite as good as the like rolled up sleeves jacket with the polo shirt underneath that he wore in season 2. I want to say, but it's up there as far as 80s fashion choices go.
He was in the welding episode where he came into Claudia's office.
That's right. Yeah. Then he comes back and he's in the leather jacket.
Yeah.
Got some great costume changes in that episode. Did Yasin / Alexander.
Makes so much sense seeing where they end up though, sort of having their own dinner party and all for the opening of the hotel and all. So much sense that these two would be really fashion conscious.
Yeah. They're very like. It's funny, like, because they almost you can see how they'd come across as quite shallow if you knew them and quite materialistic. And it's a nice kind of peek inside that relationship to be like, no, they do actually love each other. They're just also very into dressing snappily, I guess.
And Claudia was very lucky that whenever she disappeared, there was actually someone there to
look after her daughter, and someone who really loved her as well. Like, it's like, okay, I guess I'll look after her from now on. But yeah, no, it's a good montage. It goes from one really cool song that Katarina's listening to another really great song choice for the montage. Actually, this one stood out to me quite a lot. Good return of split screen. I feel like it's been a little while since we've seen that employed, or maybe I just haven't noticed it. But yeah,
it's almost a return to the type of montage we got early on.
Yeah.
In season 1, where it was very much catch up a little bit, see characters where they are at the end of the episode. Whereas towards the end of season 2, there were some montages which were just jam packed full of content that we needed to know what was going on.
Yeah.
And this is just a return to sort of character building. Story is progressing. Yeah, but we still want to have a nice little catch up with them at the end of the episode. So that's how I view it.
There's like little sort of smart edits between related characters, and like some of those relationships I've been talking about in this episode. I think really the only expository thing in this entire montage was Noah clearing out the rubble from the cave. It looks like there's been some kind of cave in that has blocked the passage. Mm-hmm. But yeah, apart from that, as you say, it's kind of a moment to breathe and reflect.
Yep. With a lovely song.
Yes.
Okay, so do you have anything to get into with the... we've talked about it a little bit already. The Sic Mundus lair and the history behind it, and the fact that it was a cult that existed already. I think it's the fact that it's only a 3-series show, they had to do something like this. You know, they had to do something to explain a lot of questions in one go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's a bit convenient that Bartos knows all of this, but I mean, I forgive it that because someone needed to do the info dump, and it might as well be Bartos because I feel like he's trying his luck with Alt Marta a little bit in this. Like he's sort of like, well, she's got a fringe, but
yeah,
I'm prepared to overlook that to restart
she
our
wasn't
relationship.
interested. I'm prepared to overlook that.
Yeah, as if he has a choice. She's not into you either in your world or hers. Bartos, moron. Yeah, it's a cool bit of exposition though. We get a bit of information, kind of fleshing out, as you say, of the Sigmundus group. There's also an interesting moment where Alt Marta, as she's walking into the room, appears to be looking at the ground in much a similar way to how Stranger was looking at a spot on the ground in the Karnvald house at the beginning of season 2, which makes me think that maybe what happened between Jonas and Marta will be replicated in this room rather than the Karnvald house. So she watched someone die maybe on this floor, and I'm gonna guess it's Magnus. Not really got any reason for that except that we know that she has said he will die in her world, so it makes me think maybe it'll be him. But yeah, that it's just an interesting way to kind of flesh out the Sigmundus group, generally speaking.
Yeah, I agree. And the idea of like who's gonna die in that, who's gonna get shot, and you think it's Magnus at the minute. It's interesting because we're doing a podcast. That's probably that little vision that she had is probably going to stay in your head more than it would of a normal viewer.
Yeah.
So we have to remember that going forward. Like, so I assume like no matter where this character goes, if that hasn't happened yet, you're still going to be thinking about who that was. Whereas necessarily when we're watching it for the first time, binging it, that's sort of you think about it for 5 minutes and then you just get carried away.
I mean, it was like less than a second that it was on that shot. So maybe they'll just never mention it, but it's in there and it's not getting out.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, last scene.
Yeah. There's
now
this does not look the Sigmundus. I'll say this right now: the Sigmundus Lodge looks bad. It looks like the kind of place that supervillains would hang out. The one Alt Marta or Eva's lodge is like worse. It's all black marble and like no like neutral or not neutral like negative colors and space. It's like, oh yeah, let's make this look like a church to Satan or something if at all possible.
Yeah. But yeah, what did you think about the fact that it sort of is revealing that in this alt world there is a Sigmundus-y thing going on too?
Yeah, well, that's kind of what fed into my theory about the cleanup crew and maybe they're operating across worlds. Because this appears, obviously, it is kind of a literal mirror of Sigmundus, and maybe there's no interaction between the groups. But the fact that Marta or Eva seems to be well aware of what is going on, or Marta as well, actually, for that matter. Alt Marta and Eva seem to be well aware of what is going on in the regular world. Makes me think that for that, by that logic, her Sigmundus must be aware of it as well.
Interesting. Did you pause it?
No, I was thinking, I bet the fan base had a hell of a time after this episode happened looking at that bloody thing on the ground. And I thought about it and I said, I'm not going to do it because I want to experience it as they've showed it to me. And I'm not going to spend loads of time analysing this thing on the floor, but I bet there's some interesting stuff in there.
I think there's going to be some people who are very happy with that decision.
Yeah.
And some people who are not. This map on the floor has got some people think that they revealed this too early. I'm just going to say something that maybe those people didn't think of, or maybe I'm just wrong and you can disagree with me. I think they didn't reveal it too early because when you go into this and have a look at it and really dig deep into it, right? There's certain things in there which you can glean and you will know. But those things that you will glean from it, you need to know other things. So you need to know certain names of certain characters that we don't know yet. And the only reason we knew those names is because we were reading into the images of different newspaper articles in the show, and we were like reading all of the Wikipedias and reading all of that extra information that was put out as well as the show. So the big reveals in this thing, I don't believe Conrad has never seen a trailer. He's never looked up the Wikipedia. He's never looked up the dark website. I don't think that he would take all of the information from it that we think he would. That's all I'll say.
I think that's it's difficult when someone is watching a show that I was kind of the same way with Game of Thrones, where someone is watching a show that you know really well and that you're kind of invested in the fandom of, because purely by being invested in that fandom, you have so many more discussions with people that open your eyes to things that you probably didn't notice in the show, and like you say, names of characters or stuff like that. And yeah, that was my thinking with this. Like, I could pause this and like really analyze this, but I think I looked through it and I was like, okay, I can't see anything that immediately jumps out at me on this. I'm sure there is stuff in there, but my thinking is, if I'm gonna have something revealed to me, or if I'm gonna figure something out or arrive at something before the show tells it to me, I want it to be kind of like as a natural part of watching the show, rather than because I've gone off on like a deep dive down the internet rabbit hole of dark fandom.
Yeah, so when a lot of the theories that I didn't show you that I predicted were based. Well, not, I didn't. Most of them were incorrect still, to be honest with you, but they were based on the zoomed in second shot of this. It was shown in the trailer.
Okay.
The zoomed in second shot with the infinity symbol in the middle.
Yeah.
See the fact that you called in the second episode ever. I think it was the first ever episode. You were talking about the infinity symbol in Stranger's hotel room.
Yeah.
There was people in the comments who were like, he already knows about the infinity symbol. So that was pretty cool. Can we break it down a little bit just from what you remember of it?
Yeah.
So it's basically like an infinity symbol in the middle, and then it branches off into two separate wings, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think? What do you think it's even in the big sort of overall big idea trying to represent? Well,
okay, so this brings me back to something, all right, that I'm gonna talk about, like the St. Christopher stuff that we've talked about before, right? They talk about this St. Christopher story, so the one who renounced the devil to carry the creator of the world. Now, the word carry could be another word for pregnancy, and the renouncing the devil really only brings me to mind of a handful of characters, basically people who've rejected Sigmundus. So you've got, to my knowledge, say that again, sorry.
The Weisse Teufel.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. The Weisse Teufel, Jonas, and Altmarter. Those are the three. So, and all three of those characters are trying to unpick this knot. They're basically trying to find the flap of the butterfly's wings that caused everything. They're working back through all these events, and so that's
looks like a butterfly.
Exactly, it does look like a butterfly. Those bastards. So that to me is what this represents. Is you've got these branching patterns of familial relationships that come from this one central point in the knot that needs to be undone, and tracing that back to that point through those familial relationships is what those guys are trying to do. Did you pick up?
Did you even have a look at what relationships were just on the very either side of that infinity?
I did. I think I'm trying to remember now because I didn't write it down. But I think it was Nielsen's, right, on either side of it. I think it was Agnes was one of them. I think I can't remember what the other one was on the left, off the top of my head. But so yeah, I think in my mind, the St. Christopher metaphor is going to be the person who gives birth to the person who causes the whole problem, basically. And in my mind, I think Claudia might be the St. Christopher in this situation. She seems like the most likely person because she's kind of carrying others on her shoulders to try and fix this, which, if we carry the metaphor forward, means the person that she gave birth to is going to be the cause of the problem, which I guess means Regina. But I don't know, that feels odd because she's dead now. But that's kind of where my mind is with that theory at the moment. In terms of what this looks like, my theory about everyone being a Nielsen or everyone being related, I guess, is the more the broader way of putting it, because everyone's a Nielsen is kind of a joke, but it does seem like everyone is now related to everyone else in some way.
There are certain parts of this now, there are one or two squares of this thing that are not connected, just to say, like the whole thing. if you took 5 minutes to look at it or 2 minutes to look at it, you'd notice that they all aren't connected, you know, in perfect ways. I'll just say.
Well, I mean, we can.
I mean, they're all connected in some way, but it's not like it's. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it in a non-spoiler way. We
can do an analysis of it. I'm happy either way. I wasn't like that committed to it. I just kind of made a snap decision. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to spend like ages looking at this because I think I'm either going to misrepresent some information or I'm gonna arrive at something that I wouldn't have arrived at otherwise.
I think we're going to leave the analysis of it now. I think there's a particular episode I'm thinking of that after that happens, we could look at it a bit more.
Yeah.
But at the minute, I think we'll leave it. There is a big aspect to it that you're not picking up on right now.
Okay.
But I'll leave that hanging.
Okay. It's just makes me want to go and look at it.
Unless, to be honest with you, unless it's like the trio thing and it's so obvious that you're just not saying it. But there's something that you're not picking up about it.
Well, it's the mirrored worlds. Is that what I'm not picking up on?
That's the thing I wanted you to mention.
Okay, yeah, So the line down the middle is the mirrored world.
Okay,
it's
awesome,
like the old world.
So that's one of those other obvious things that you just weren't going to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no. So I didn't actually see which side was which, to be honest. But yeah, my interpretation is: here's your one world, here's your alternate world, something joins in the middle between these worlds, and there, you know. Between it's the creation of Adam again, you know, so his God, his man, that spot in between is where everything else is, and it's finding that spot that creates everything.
So you do think that infinity symbol, that spot, is a person, or do you think it's an event?
I think it's a person. I think that the explanation of I could be way off with this, but the mention of the St. Christopher mythos, that carrying the one who like renouncing the devil and carrying the one who will create the world, to me that feels very pointed as a bit of dialogue saying that St. Christopher is the person who like guides the person who's gonna either I can't really get it straight in my head. They've either carried the person who's going to break everything, or they've carried the person who is going to fix everything. I'm not 100% sure which way that cuts yet, but I think the person they carried, or in my mind, the person they gave birth to, is the thing that sits in the middle of that, and it's figuring out who that person is that is kind of the end goal at this point.
Cool. Roundup time.
Let's do it.
All right, so IMDb rating this week, 8.9.
I think that's about right. Yeah, it's funny actually. This episode really held up to second watching. The first time I watched it, I was a bit like, oh, that wasn't that dynamic. We didn't get too much in that episode. But then the second time I watched it, I was like, actually, there's loads of good character work in that for Katerina, and the Claudia Regina Tronte stuff is really good as well. So yeah, I think that's probably about right. That's cool.
Yeah.
Very
okay,
good
guys, and before.
episode.
Yeah, I thought it was good as well. I think before we go into the full-on, like, sort of overall chatting, we've done a lot of it, to be honest with you. And just to find out if we have any more theories that Conrad has that he hasn't told us yet, before we do that, we forgot that there was a title card in this episode and the name of the episode. We forgot to do the name of the episode. Now, I'm sorry about that. I was a bit taken aback by it, to be honest with you. For a show that I like to think of as perfect, it's strange that they didn't do the title card with the name of the episode at all in the second season. They did every episode in the first season, and then they go for one episode into the second season, and then they're like, in episode 2 of the third season, they're like, yeah, let's have it back again.
Yeah, let's bring that back.
It's a bit all over the place. Maybe an episode of Dark Discussions is, why did they choose the episodes they Yeah, but anyway, it's The Travelers in English.
Oh, Survivors, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it is. Sorry. I just really wanted to say D. Ricington.
Yeah, D. Ricington.
So, The Survivors. Okay, so do you know what it is? Do you want to have a go?
I do. Yeah, I think it's Die Überlebenden.
Right.
It says it in the episode. You realise that, right?
Yeah, Die Überlebenden.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that is it. That's it's almost phonetic, that one.
Yeah, it's got an umlaut, I think.
Yeah.
I think Uber has an umlaut on it, yeah.
Yeah. So Uber is super. Is that correct?
Uber is over. I mean, it can be. I think it can be used to mean
Ubermensch.
other
What does that
things.
mean?
That getting into dangerous territory with this. That mean
I don't know what it means.
I think that literally means overman. So, but
Yes. Yeah. An Ubermensch. Yeah. Okay.
But it means
like an alpha male.
Yeah, but it is interpreted to mean like superiority, which I think is where the Superman thing comes from. But
Fair enough. Okay. Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So, any theories you haven't heard yet, or we just sort of teetering to the end of this episode bit by bit?
yeah, just creaking our way towards it. Let me just check. Let me consult the Matrix. No, I think we got everything.
Oh, good.
I think we've nailed it all. Like the CUC stuff, I think they're from another world. Stay tuned for that. Katerina being the lady in the lake, and Tronta and Regina and Claudia's various relationships. We've covered it all.
Ties.
Yes. Bonds.
In the comments, guys, weigh in on whether Conrad and I should do a deeper analysis on that map on the floor.
It's going to be so hard for me not to go off and Google image search that now. I really did want to do it. It wasn't just laziness. I was like, I'm not going to do it, but we'll see what the listeners say.
Yeah, see what the comments say. Maybe if you want us to, if we get enough people saying it, maybe we can do that in the roundup next week. We'll see. I also like the idea of Conrad like not really knowing, because let's be honest, he came into this season with a +1 in the theory matrix. We can't let him get a plus. We can't let him get a plus. No one is leaving dark predicting more right than wrong. No one.
If I get that, I'm gonna write an email to Jon Fries and Barbaroda, be like, "Your show was rubbish. I guessed everything."
Yeah, I guess everything. That reminds me of a friend of mine. I haven't talked to him for many years actually, but we went to see Newton Faulkner, the musician, live. And Newton Faulkner is known for playing the guitar with ridiculous skill. He plays like the bass. He plays the main sort of rhythm section. He plays the drums on it. He plays the treble. He plays like 4 parts on a guitar at one time. My friend was very good at the guitar too, and we met Newton Faulkner after the concert. And the thing he said to this celebrity, who he loved his music, he said, "Pretty good. I'm going to go home and learn all your songs." And the Newton Faulkner was just like, oh, "Okay, good for you, buddy.
Good luck." Yeah.
yeah.
That's
so
great.
I thought that was hilarious. But yeah, so that was a good episode. What do you think about a wee segment?
Sure, I could go for a segment.
I don't know what it is, but when I kiss you, it's like I'm kissing my brother.
All right, very quick this week. The segment is Vincest.
Yes.
Because I only decided to do the segment during the podcast, to be honest with you, because I realized that there's some discussion to be had. If your theory is correct that Tronta is Regina's father, then there's some family tree stuff going on that we could have a chat about. So I'm thinking, first of all, that would mean that Bartos is related to Marta.
Oh wait, hold on. Let me get this.
Tronta would be Bartos's grandfather.
Yes.
And Marta's grandfather.
Oh. Yes. That's true. Okay, wait. So yeah, that would make what? That would make them cousins?
Yeah, cousins of some sort. Yeah.
So about the same kind of familial distance as Magnus and Franziska, which is, as we've said before, close enough to not be comfortable. Like,
true.
Close enough to be illegal in most countries.
Yeah. It would mean, what else is there? So Bartos, no, I think that's actually all there is at the minute.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I still think everyone is bloody related in this show, so I'm just waiting for the pieces to fall into play. Like Peter Doppler, I'm convinced he's related to Claudia as well because of the way they're cutting around him and her in this show. So he's bloody fitting in there somewhere too, which then means that Ellie, which then means Franziska is even more related to Magnus if Regina is. Oh wait, hold on. No, because that's Bartos. Oh my god. It's going to get too complicated to do this. But basically, if Peter Doppler slots into this as well, it's going to become a nightmare. It's already a nightmare, to be honest.
Peter Doppler. Right, okay.
He's in there somewhere, I'm telling you.
Oh yeah, this is going to be great. I can't wait. I can't wait to have your thoughts on the rest of the season.
Yeah.
6 episodes to go. That's all we've got. I worked it out. It's going to be, I think the last episode is going to be coming out on the 18th of January.
Oh, that's not that far away.
That's not that far away at all. So, Trump's presidency will still be teetering on just for the last few days. So we'll actually be finished Dark around the same time the current president of America's term ends. That's what was perfect symmetry.
We'll wear our party hats.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thanks very much for listening, guys. We have been Anthony and Conrad, as always. And we'd like you to subscribe if you can. If you like the video, it would do us a lot of favors too. Subscribe on audio podcasts if you haven't already. Those numbers are ticking up, so thank you very much for that. If you want to contribute to the podcast in any way, if anything you give us would be great. Only if you can. If you can't, throw it to charity or spend it on food for yourself. That's probably a good thing too.
Treat yourself,
on a nice pasta dinner. But basically, guys, thanks very much for listening. And I think I've said all I need. Oh, yeah. If you want to leave a comment for Conrad for next week, and if you want to also email us, it's adpodmail@gmail.com. Right, guys, thanks very much for listening. Any final thoughts, Conrad?
I am St. Christopher, and I'm going to carry you all to the end of Dark.
Can't wait. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the After Dark podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode.